Episode 4 Seoul Falls. This week, there are rumours of Vladimir Putin's death. Although it isn't confirmed this week, it is rumoured that it could happen. This episode is called Seoul Falls because this week, Seoul is captured. This week, I am starting with the death of Vladimir Putin. On the 9th, a former Russian soldier of the 22nd Army Corps claimed on the 4th there had been a coup in the Kremlin. Just rewind. Back on the 2nd of November, Putin had angered Alexander Dvornikov, or as he was also known as in Britain, the Butcher of Syria, who was the leader of the Second Army up until the 1st. Vasily Gerasimov was also angered alongside Oleg Solikov. Solikov was General Chief of Staff, while Vasily Gerasimov is the leader of the whole army, including the navy and the aircraft. Gerasimov possibly could have been replaced by the leader of the navy, Nikolai Yevhenov, who's an admiral. On the 1st, Dvornikov was pulled from the Second Army and was replaced by Sergei Shoigu, also Minister of Defense. This probably made what the Russian soldier called a possible enslavement of the Russians inevitable. I don't know why he called it an enslavement. It was confirmed that on the 3rd, the 3rd Army Corps was in Moscow, and this army was led by Arkady Bakhin. According to the soldier, at 3 PM on the 4th of December, the 3rd Army Corps started rebelling in Moscow, making their way towards the Kremlin, asking for a pay rise and to have half the men not have any more involvement in the offensives in Ukraine. At the same time, Solikov was meeting with Putin, who asked this question: "Why are they rebelling? I led this army into Ukraine for glory, and this is the reply I get. Why is Bakhin with them? He's the general and I appointed him after all." Solikov's reply: "Sir, the war in Ukraine is not going to plan. The Ukrainian army is advancing in a counter-offensive and have killed many soldiers. They fear the Ukrainian armies and you so much that they mutiny out of wanting to live and not cowardice. That's why you haven't paid the soldiers for this month. I also think you made a mistake by not appraising Dvornikov for his service in the Second Army by giving him command in your cabinet. I think your only course of action at this point is to resign." Don't know somebody actually tried to get Dvornikov in the cabinet, possibly to put Dvornikov in charge of the country if Putin were to resign. Dvornikov, if he had been in the cabinet, would have given him a legal excuse to be in charge of the country as a puppet for Gerasimov. Putin replied that he wasn't going to do that, stating of his policies in Syria and Afghanistan, although Afghanistan had nothing to do with Putin. This is the Afghanistan involving the Americans, by the way. And that really you didn't have any cause and you were fired. Unfortunately for Putin, this order would get carried out as Gerasimov and some men of the 17th Battalion stormed into the city, defeating Putin's guards. On seeing Putin, Gerasimov shot him in the head. Putin died immediately, and the man, the leader of Russia, who had taken him into Iraq, Syria, Georgia and Ukraine, and had been in charge of the country the longest as a president since Joseph Stalin, who also killed anyone that stood in his path, was dead. In the aftermath of this killing, soldiers said that Dvornikov was put in charge of the army, while Gerasimov took charge of Russia. Gerasimov does have a similar voice to Putin, and we haven't seen Putin, but we have heard from him since. But it's unsure that this could be distinguished from Gerasimov or Putin. Unfortunately for this, no one can actually confirm what the soldier says for now. Meanwhile, in Korea, the situation in Incheon becomes even more unsustainable for the defenders as the electricity gets cut off. The attacks on both stadiums become even more intense, but they can still defend. On the 5th, Southerners of the 7th Army defending Incheon would withdraw. The situation there was untenable, as it was impossible to defend and there was no defendable places. Yoon Suk-yeol says that the new capital is Busan, which is very defendable, and that the forces of the south would defend every inch, every town, every house, every blade of grass, as if this was for the fate of the world. To be fair, some blades of grass and some houses can choose the fate of the world, such as the one where Hitler was born and where Hitler died. Probably a bad quote. Just probably a get taken down. Anyway, over the week in Taiwan, the Chinese attacked ferociously all over the Chiayi line. The troops across this defend ferociously, but the line will fall, as will Taiwan. At least that's what the Chinese leader Fumio Kishida says, unless the Americans send some reinforcements. Quite possibly he could be sent. Biden could send 5th Corps under John S. Kolosecki, which are preparing to move to some point somewhere in Asia, possibly to Taiwan. They could plan to land in Taipei, and then move out. This was a similar situation to what they did in the Korean War. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.